Alright guys, let's get some color on this 1983 Buick Regal Bobby Allison Miller High Life NASCAR build here. So we're going to use TS7 Tamiya Racing White. Put my dust mitt on. Let's go to town. Alright, let me finish painting this, and when I'm done we'll be back at the bench putting on some decals. Stick around. Alright guys, it's been about 24 hours. My paint is dry and cured. The Tamiya TS7 Racing White on the body. Now these are just some of the tools I'll be using to do this job, and no, I'm not going to make you sit through the whole decal process because it's going to take me several hours. These are power slide decals from mikesdecals.com. The number 22 Bobby Allison Miller High Life 1983 Buick Regal. So let's take a look at what I've got on the bench here to help me get this job done. The first thing is I've got my reference photos. Now they're not very good, so if you're doing something like this, your best bet is to go online and Google images, and you can find full color shots of whatever car that you're doing, obviously. But this is going to be a decent help, although not in full color. It's black and white. It'll show some of the decal placement, which will be useful. Obviously your decal sheet, I've cut out a few, and what I'm going to do on camera is I will do the hood with the large Miller Time Miller High Life decal, and then the Buick on the header panel of the car. So we have our microsol and microset. I'll be using the microset. Okay, the microsol is used primarily when you really need to soften decals and they need to conform to contours on the body. There might be some places I might have to use this, but I don't think so. So we'll see. And obviously your Q-tips, so you can squeeze out any excess water out from under the decal. Paper towel just in case. Obviously a sharp X-Acto blade that's brand new. I just changed it 5 minutes ago for extra trimming, and then obviously the scissors to trim. Now in these decals, they're printed on clear, so I'm going to trim some of them very closely if they have some excess decal paper. But my suggestion to you is, if you're not going to clear coat the body, you definitely want to trim it as close as possible. I'm going to be using 2K, and I'll be laying several coats of clear coat over top of this body by the time it's done. So I probably won't have to trim too closely, you know, or if I make a mistake and don't trim one close enough, it's probably not going to show up. Alright, so let me get all this stuff off the bench and get my surface prepared to lay some of the decals on the hood. Stick around. Alright, so this is how I do it. So I dip a cotton bud, Q-tip, whatever you want to call it, into the microset. It's a setting solution. It's not as strong as a microsol, but you want a little bit on there, and then you're going to take your decal. Now for a lot of you, I'm preaching to the choir. A lot of you have done these hundreds of times, but obviously you want to soak your decal, soften it so it's going to slide right off the paper. Usually 10-15 seconds and you're good. See if it slides. Not quite yet. It's warm water in the bowl. Obviously you want to monitor your decal so it doesn't start curling up or start lifting off the paper in the water, because once it does that, it's going to be a pain to get it back straightened out. Okay, it's sliding, but not easily enough. And I can see the edges of the decal starting to lift off the paper. So then position it over your part, ease it off. And go slowly so you don't tear it. Move this out of the way before I knock it over. Now obviously, if you've never done decals before, you want to keep the surface moist and wet until you have it in the right position, exactly where you want it. Because if you don't, it starts drying out, it's not going to move. Alright. Alright. Then you probably want to dab it off, hold it in place, dab off the excess. I think I'm moving it. Yep, I'm definitely moving it. Alright, so no problem, just reposition it. Probably not going to see that, but that was a hair of some sort. Alright, so take a dry cotton bud then and start working out. Fumble fingers. Hold it on one side. Start working out from the center outwards and get rid of all that excess water and microset. Still seeing some wrinkles. Just getting rid of the excess water that's underneath it and getting it to set. I'm going to get any of the air bubbles out, all the air bubbles that you can on this. And of course my finger is causing more wrinkling. I still see a lot of air bubbles trapped under there, and the decal does not seem to be laying correctly. So this is where you'd probably want to put some microsol on there, or microset, because you want that to lay down flat. Now where's the one I used for the, oh I don't know what I did with it. We'll get another one. So dip your Q-tip in there. Over it lightly, and what it'll do is it'll soften the decal, and the decal will start conforming to the surface. And it'll help you get all the rest of the air bubbles out and make that decal lay how you want it. Again, you might have a better oh, there's that Q-tip. You might have a better technique than I do with these, but I built hundreds of NASCAR model kits, and this is the process that I've always used, and they've always turned out pretty good. So you're going to leave this set for a couple minutes. So wait a few minutes for the decals to soften, then press the decal down with a piece of moist paper towel. Repeat as necessary. Use microsol for more decal softening strength. That's what the instructions say on the bottle. So dry Q-tip. Again, work from the center out. Trying to get any of those air bubbles out of here. Right here in this body line on the hood, that's giving me a hard time, and that's where micro sol would come into play right here. If that doesn't lay down nice, when you're done, it's probably going to need some micro sol. Dry paper towel, dab it, don't wipe. Oh. Just not really happy with it, guys. It's just not doing what I want it to do. It just seems to be a lot of air bubbles trapped under there. Okay, it looks way better than it did. And it's still centered, and it looks pretty good. Not perfect, but it looks pretty good. And if you get to a point where you can't get all the air bubbles out, you can probably take a sewing needle and lightly poke a hole in it and then rub the air out. Alright, let's move on to the next one. If you're still here. So the same thing, this is going to go right here on the header panel. And again, I'm going to take micro set, put some right here. Make sure your decal does not curl. Let me cap this before I dump it. Not quite ready. Okay, there we go. It's sliding. Okay. Get that all centered up where you want it to go. Let's put the hood on and check it out. I think it looks okay where it's at. Maybe move it over just a smidge. Oh, too much, way too much. All right, let me move this hood. Way too much. think that's about where I want it, guys. And with that, when you guys come back, the car will be decaled. See you soon. Alright, welcome back, guys. We've got this thing just about buttoned up. This is the last decal that we're putting on here. I mean, there are a couple other decals to put on, but we're going to wait for that until we get done clear coating and doing some detail painting and stuff. So let's see if this is ready. Not quite. My water is a little bit cool. I've changed my water several times while doing this, obviously, because you kind of want warm water. Alrighty. Probably as straight as it's going to get. Dab off the excess water. Now this is soaked in microset, and I've had to use some microset on it, but I've also had to bust out the microsol. There's a couple decals that just were not setting correctly and conforming to the body panels, so I just went ahead and grabbed the microsol and touched them up, and they laid better. I'll show you that in a second. I think it looks pretty good. Dampen your paper towel. Alright, I think it looks pretty good. So when I used the microsol here, it was because these decals here fold into the wheel well and the wheel lip, and they weren't doing that with regular water or the microset. So I used the microsol to soften them up and then fold them in and around both sides. And then up here, this arrow-like decal did not want to set properly, and still I'm just not. Oh, there's a bead of water on there. That's all right. Dab that down and give it a little attention later, and use the microsol to fold them around here too instead of cutting them off. But there she is, guys, all decaled up. There's a few decals left, but like I said, some of them are going to be under hood decals, and others are just, they seem to be extras. Now, doing research on this car, I looked, and obviously not a single car ever is going to be exactly the same. So my reference photos, I used Randy Ayers model cars as a reference, but I still didn't even go exactly the way that he put the decals on. Now on this one, you'll see here the Miller High Life, you see this angled a lot more. I didn't angle it as much. Put it here. The High Life is High Life, And on this side, generally when you see it, the high life is on one line. But instead, I went high life. You know, I think it looks better that way. And I don't think it looks too bad. And I'm happy to be this far with it. Now we're going to let it sit overnight and we're going to get some 2K on it. I've got to do some detail painting, obviously. The rear window supports, stuff like that. Gasoline overflow here and the filler. And then after it's clear coated and stuff like that, I'll put the hood pins on it and everything, and probably paint this aluminum and do some detail work on the chrome parts, the bumpers and the grill and stuff. Alright guys, that is it. Look forward to the final reveal sometime this week. I like to think that I'm going to be done with this by, Wednesday the latest. Alright guys, thanks for watching. Happy modeling.